This ridiculously early morning endeavour is sponsored by Squarespace. Well, my friends, it has been a good while, hasn't it? In fact, I haven't done a thrifting episode since, April 2019, so I can't even really blame the pandemic. But just feel that air, sniff that fresh, early morning tarmac smell. It just feels so liberating getting out of the house, and as the UK is gradually opening back up, I thought it a good time to get out and about and do some bargain hunting. So here we are at Arming Hall Car Boot Sale, and for the uninitiated, a car boot sale is where a group of British people go to a field, unload their car boots and sell, well, anything really, but usually junk they don't want, to other British people. I'm here with my child, and apparently the first thing I go for is a bucket of dubious wrestling figures. Honestly, if that's a sign of things to come, it's best we just go now. As usual, most stalls are an utter shambolic mishmash of random goods, but I spy a Microsoft wireless keyboard behind some shoes. Tempting, but I've really got enough keyboards for now, especially from this era. Honestly, most people just have boxes of utter nonsense just lying on a mat. I commend their early morning drive, but do they actually make any money from these things? I mean, surely not. There's a kid here, and he just eyeballs me. I think he probably wants me dead, to be honest. Whatever, kid, at least I don't crap my pants. Well, not often anyway. There was a stall around the corner selling a load of Lego stuff, but social distancing is not top of anyone's list here, so it didn't seem worthwhile hanging about. Just across the aisle, we find a stall selling Epson-compatible ink, bum bags, baseball caps, and some random Wii games, accessories, and Skylanders. That well-known combination. To be honest, I should have investigated more closely, but then I did find a Masters of the Universe VHS next door. What an odd film that was. Even when I was 7, this film disturbed me in ways I can't even describe. Oh, cartoon show. Some of these cartoons are best left forgotten, I think. You can tell by the gaps on some of these ground mats that we got here a bit late. We arrived at about 8:40 AM, but you need to be here before 8, preferably 7 o'clock sharp, to get the best stuff. For me, that's unlikely to ever happen, but I did almost grab this real-life bugs and insects binder. These magazines came out a number of years ago, but originally with actual bugs encased in resin. Maybe they worked their way into a local museum, but there's only the magazines here, unfortunately. Holy crap, there's the Mona Lisa. But I was actually drawn in by this Fender Squier guitar. Not for me specifically, but to teach my child how to play. That guy drove a hard bargain though. I had to come back a few times and haggle him down. Even then I didn't have enough cash and paid by PayPal, which still blows my mind. You know, I used to do a lot of car boot sales as a kid, and transferring money digitally, instantly? What a world we live in. A 1960s Scalextric set there, a few bits and bobs of potential interest not worth stopping for. But this Philips LED photo frame caught my eye for some reason. I think it's because they're increasingly being hacked and used for interesting things. Now we're talking. Xbox stuff, a PS2, a PS4, there's even a Hornby Devon Flyer set. I'll be honest, I should have picked up that PS2 and a few of these games. The guy wanted £45 for the PS2, so probably could have got it for 40, and that really isn't half bad for a boxed console. But alas, I passed and instead opted to grab this Microsoft Sidewinder wheel and pedals for £6. I'm 95% certain that I actually picked up a slightly older Sidewinder from this exact car boot a couple of years ago, but as the saying goes, one Sidewinder is never enough. Now obviously this meant that I had to lug around a massive box, whilst looking at a Mixman MP3 producer. I've actually got my original one of these, so no need to grab another, especially as the rubber on the decks start to perish on most of them. Another store had an interesting box of old VGA splitters. I've got enough, but these ones still look pretty cool. Plus there were a load of empty alcohol bottles nearby. Somebody obviously had a great evening of Drambuie and splitting VGA signals. It sounds good to me. Look at that chunky 90s kids skateboard. Man, I miss those horrendously bulky things with their garish underboard designs. Anyway, it's at this point that I dumped the box in the car and we continued forth. Loads of keyboards here, a number of small boxed PC games and DVDs. This stall had a Victorian poor girl outfit, which seemed a bit wrong somehow. I don't know why, but I'm always drawn to old metal filing cabinets. Something about 70s office organisation just speaks to me on a spiritual level. This also speaks to me on a deep level, a bone-chilling level of abject horror. Look at this Hexafun fish tank. We had the exact same model in my parents' house, where Spooky the Fish lived, and I might add, to the age of 23, which is insane. But happens more often than you might think, and no, it didn't die and get replaced by my parents, well, unless my parents brutally removed the exact same missing scales on each new fish they bought. It's possible, I guess. There's a load of these photo printers about. They popped up around 2005, 2006, and for a while it seemed like every man and his mother had one, before everyone realised how much they charged for the replacement ink. Oh, and these portable fans, they were a huge craze back in, what, the early 90s? Although this one is clearly older than that. And you know what else is older than that? Your cruddy website. You should be thankful that Squarespace is here to help you sort that out. You might have made your own site or had it made using outdated technology, but Squarespace keeps up with the pack. You can effortlessly choose a design, customize it through a WYSIWYG interface, and have your business, hobby, or project of passion up in minutes. Now, you might not fancy selling hand fans, but how do you feel about an integrated shop? A blog that you can easily update with your latest thoughts, and even integrated social media options. If that sounds good, use the link below to get started for free with 10% off your first website or custom domain purchase. How's that for thrifting? Ah man, I really love seeing old shop branded stuff. A Boot 2400 round slide magazine with room on the back to list the slides, very cool indeed. Also cool is this old record deck with built-in cassette player. If I had the space I'd probably have grabbed it, but you know, I don't. But look, it's just got this raw, unashamed, clunky design which appeals. Look at this stuff. I don't even know what half this stuff is. There are literally dolls decomposing in some of these boxes or whatever that is. I mean, what even is that? It looks like some sort of Dorian Gray doll. It's decomposing in the box. Ah, there's a lone copy of Brian Lara's Cricket on the Mega Drive. Ugh, Mrs. Brown's Boys on DVD. Some more Wii stuff, a few PS1 games in the box. Meh. Honestly, it was feeling like a bit of a slim pickings day. These bags of broken Xbox 360s kind of sum my feelings up. There was an original Xbox Crystal Edition near an Ajax Pong machine. Ajax? Don't they make, like, kitchen cleaner? Anyway, the Crystal Xbox, the guy wanted 40 quid for it with a controller, and that was tempting, but it looked a bit rusted and, you know, who knows if it works or not, so a pass on that one. Look, another terrifying floor fiend. Anyway, with that, I felt like we were done with Arming Hall, but more glory awaited because a nearby village was doing a village garage sale. This is pretty cool, so any residents who wanted to take part paid a small fee that went to charity, and then they'd appear on this map. And armed with this map, you can then drive or walk from house to house, seeing what wares had been turfed out of houses and garages. Now, the only problem was, there were about 80 houses here, and it took us about 4 hours to get around. Things got off to a good start though. This house had an old Microsoft keyboard with a roller scrolly thing. Interesting. Also a VHS tape and a load of games. I got the feeling though that someone had been here before me. A retro hoarding foe, and that was confirmed on the Facebook community post I saw later on. That keyboard certainly wasn't there when I arrived. Again, we were too late.
I'm not a fan.
It seemed to be a whole family affair for this house, which, you know, it was nice. Now, although I hadn't grabbed any Wii stuff from the car boot, for some reason I felt compelled to buy this Wii for a bargain price of £17. You know, Wiis are so versatile, you can do so much with them. Emulation, just play Wii Sports, I like them. It included a few games, although not the games depicted on the cases, and actually they were better games, and I'll show you what they were later on. You know, there was something quite warming about this village treasure hunt. It felt like the whole community were just going out for a social endeavour on their doorsteps. Filing cabinet. Nice. It was quite nice just exploring the village, going from place to place, like a terrible episode of Challenge Annika. Some houses were just selling stuff straight from their garage, which was interesting. I thought this bag might contain a laptop, but it was a pretty well spec'd car cleaning kit. Not bad for a £5. Obviously, a lot of people were just selling their kids' old toys, books, clothing, so some houses required a literal and very slow drive-by just to suss out what was on offer, which probably looked a bit odd, just the owner watching me slowly driving past, staring into their soul. But that was more difficult for houses at the end of a cul-de-sac, because I felt kind of obliged to at least get out of the car and have a look at the wares on offer before turning around in their drive and pelting off again. Had a nice chat with this chap about 90s desk lamps before driving about 3 seconds further down the road and looking at some McDonald's Marios. Honestly, if I was more organised, I would have walked this entire thing despite the route covering a huge area, but the pack away time was 3 PM and it was fast approaching. This is the same phone my parents had in the 90s, maybe late 80s. It felt so advanced over our previous phone because it had a secrecy button. That honestly felt like the height of phone technology in 1990. The woman at this house tried to sell me her old inkjet printer even though the rollers weren't working, mainly because she didn't want to just chuck it away, and I admire that because most people just chuck these huge lumps of metal and plastic in the bin, and that's such a nasty waste. Just because it's so cheap to buy a new one. Humans are doomed if we carry on with our disdain for the environment, no doubt. This house had some comics, an old Dell flat panel, a GameCube memory card. Nothing really worth grabbing, and again that felt fairly consistent across most houses. Probably why I grabbed this haul of Simpsons figures. I don't know why, it just appealed to me on a 90s kind of aesthetic level.
Cheers. Alright, thank you very much.
Whoa, look at this old Tiger comic and that telephone directory. Even these tobacco tins feel nostalgic. I think mainly because my dad had a similar beaten up box in the 80s. Right, across the other side of the village there was a house, tucked away, giving away some interesting bits. A parallel switch box and a USB switch were the most interesting, which could be useful. Just look at that massive light up Volvo sign. Ah, if I had the space I'd hang this on the wall just for the sake of it, but I don't, so it sadly remained where it was. Now this was amusing. Most of the houses were using balloons to indicate they were part of the village garage trail, so when I saw balloons on a post I followed them naturally. It seemed a bit odd as they led me directly into someone's back garden, especially as there was nothing there. It felt like a trap. Turned out it was for their daughter's birthday party. The guy came out and he was like, "What are you doing, mate?" But then realising he had the opportunity to sell some stuff, potentially, he started asking me what I was looking for. Sadly, no vintage electronics here, so onwards. An empty Dell laptop bag for £1. This guy, whatever he is, and an original stylophone for £10. Yes, please. The guy selling it actually had the outer box, but had taken it off because people were getting offended by Rolf Harris. And honestly, I can totally understand that. I used to be a member of this guy's cartoon club. Oh god, bad times. If you want to know who Rolf Harris is or what he did, I'll just let you Google that yourself. This place enticed me in with soya milk on a nearby table, and then actually offered me a cup of tea, but I was after this pink Nintendo DS. I don't know, Naughty's consoles have grown on me recently. I mean, we are talking 17 years since they came out. That's getting on a bit. Also, there were a few curious games, so for £20 for the lot, that seems like a good deal. Now, this lass had a variety of DS games, some VHS tapes, and some Apple stickers, you know. I grabbed a few bits, she was very friendly, and actually one of the last people to still have their stall open, as it was now about 3 PM. Also very much on the boundary of the village, so didn't get as much footfall as the houses deeper in the village. I guess that's why we have car boot sales, everything is together and easier to get around despite the huge crowds of people. But this village garage sale, it was very enjoyable. It was a good way to get out, chat to locals, find some bargains, and get back into the thrifting spirit. Which leaves us with the haul for this episode. So, not here is the Fender Squier guitar, which cost £100 with amp and stand, but that's not mine. So the total spend otherwise was a brisk £79. £6 for that Sidewinder, £10 for these Simpsons characters, which are from a 25-piece collector's set from about 2006, £17 for the Wii, which came with steering wheels, a microphone, loads of connectors, and these games, which are actually Mario Kart and Sonic and Mario Olympics, so that's nice. And also there's a dinosaur book I bought for Octavius for 50p. Then there's all these DS games, most of which came with the £20 Hot Pink DS, apart from Mystery Case Files, which was 50p. Those connectors were free, and then of course the stylophone for £10, including an accompanying book. That Handbook of Chemistry and Physics, it just looked cool, and that was £5, and the same for the VHS tapes. And of course, there's this car cleaning kit, which is unused, and for £5, a bargain. I can use it to clean my Renault 19. So, there we are, the first post-lockdown thrifting session. Who knows where the next thrifting session will take us? Probably deeper into hoarder territory. But until then, thanks for joining me. I've been Nostalgia Nerd. Toodaloo.